Rhys Thomas, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Simon. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm very good. Lovely to speak to a former international rugby player on a Monday morning. But I know that you're not the only star this morning, are you? You bumped into someone in the coffee shop, is that right?
Yeah, Ronnie OSullivan on my morning walk with the dog. Just walked into our local coffee shop. Yeah, mental.
As you do, as
Yeah,
you do. And you chatted with him?
yeah. We had a chat. Um, he's a lovely guy. We got, you know, he has a lot of stuff that I've always looked at. Obviously, he's a legend of the game. But he was an addict as well, alcoholic. We had a little chat about that, and yeah, lovely little morning chat over a cup of coffee.
I bet it was. You've got the world's best snooker player, and then you come straight into a conversation with me. I mean, what could be better, Reeve? What could be better? Now,
Uh,
look, you're everywhere at the moment. You're very prevalent in terms of your open discussion around mental health. Completely inspirational. I have heard your story a couple of times, most recently on a podcast. I think it may have been an Instagram live, all very trendy with Instagram live with Suzanne Shaw from former Hearsay. Is that right?
that's right, yeah. I think that was last Tuesday evening. And
Yeah,
it's
I
been
mean, all
done.
these superstars and everyone, Reese, the days all mix into one, don't they?
And it's like, I can assure you, it's never how it was leading up to even the last 2 weeks. It's kind of been clubhouse, and it's opened a few doors. Finally. So
Yeah,
yeah,
good. Well, it's
been
not just
good.
Clubhouse opening the doors; it's your story. To be fair, I've been on a couple of tables where I've heard you, and there's a lot. I don't know. I'm still getting used to Clubhouse. There's a lot of sort of I am this, I am that, and then
Mm.
when you came on, everyone just went quiet. You could hear a pin drop because it was like, whoa, authenticity. I love the word
Mm.
normal. You were just saying it as it is, incredibly relatable to everyone that was on there, and I don't know if you found it. Everyone sort of stopped and went, you know what? Let's take the game face off for a bit. Let's have a normal chat.
I think, yeah, that's the thing, Simon. I think I just because it's just my story. It's what it was. I don't have to make anything up or um, spice it up, or it's not scripted. It's just, you know, it's an extreme end of what can happen with what happened with my health, etc. But I just think, yeah, it's a good, it's a story that relates because it's got many parts, many strings, I suppose, that people find relatable in many ways.
Well,
And
I'd like to delve into that a bit, if I may, Reese.
really,
I've been on some of your social media and obviously follow you and spoken a few times, haven't we? And
yeah,
you could take one shot, whether it's meeting Nelson Mandela or just about to go into Johnny Wilkinson's right shoulder and one of your photographs. So you could take that as a real snapshot of wow, brilliant, made it, everything else. As we both know, sometimes there's a social veneer that we could all put on, and underneath is a story. Could you take us back and let everyone know what happened, where it started, Reese?
from the career and then subsequent
Wherever
injury
you
time.
wherever you want to start, your first experience with mental health, if it was earlier than that, or
Yeah,
perhaps how it all unfolded.
yeah, I think you know, like growing up, all fine, Simon. No normal family dynamic, very good family dynamic, big family, happy, a lot of sports, a lot of fun times, good schools, great friends, opportunity to leave the country that I was born in South Africa and come over to Wales with Newport. And, that initially was probably where the first few challenges started to happen. Like any person that would leave home for the first time. But it was in a foreign country. My family was still back in SA, so and all my best friends from school. So there was definitely a period where it was challenging. I was living with my half brother who I barely knew. I didn't have anyone to tell me what to do, and you know rugby was one thing that I was talented at. You know, the other was partying, and it was trying to control that balance, of which there was no balance at all in those first couple of years. It was completely party boy, and then rugby was a sideshow. But obviously, I ended up going to under 19 World Cup in Chile, only a matter of months after I landed in Wales. And then right after that was probably when my head got to my head a little bit, went off the rails. Newport under 21s cancelled my contract. They sent me back. I rang my mother, actually, in fact, told her to come pick me up because I'd gone off the rails. My mother did. I went back to South Africa for about 4 to 6 months. I can't remember exactly the timeline. And then in that time, thought I knew it all. Me and my old man fell out. I was living at my mate's house and just living on crisp sandwiches and getting drunk and, just being a write-off, really. And then just thinking, like, how did I go from the World Cup to here? No. And then that was when my dad reached out and said, "Let's speak to a sports psychologist." I went to meet a sports psychologist, met him 3 times. And then I just thought, that I've got an opportunity here. Let's chase it. And I did. I went back to Wales. Although I was still that wild guy, I managed to tame it a little bit and got that focus back to the game. Went to the 21 World Cup, made the tournament 15, came back from that, signed my first pro contract, and it just went from there, push. And, met my wife when I was just after that World Cup when I was 21, my wife to be. And things at that point in my life, things couldn't have been any better, Simon.
Well, there's quite a difference, though, isn't it? From the lowest of the lows to then up, seeing what you can actually do, what you're capable of. You were living life back to when the wheels came off, so to speak. What was this partying environment like, or what were you doing at your lowest, and how do you see it when you're looking back at it?
Oh, I mean, I was 18 years old, Simon, in Wales, and no one to tell me what to do, no one to watch over me, tell me, don't do that, don't do this. It was mental. I would be out 4 or 5 times a week doing all sorts of things that a young man would do, and then some. It was a time where, like, Jackass was about, so it was fantastic to run through things, run over things. I was like the Tasmanian devil, and that brought with it, a whole different bunch of issues. But it was fun. I mean, listen, don't get me wrong. I had so much fun. I made so many good friends in that short space of time, and I was getting to know my half brothers really well. But I was working for the first time in a factory. I wasn't used to the dark mornings, the early days, the lots of rain. I mean, it was a hectic time. I mean, I embraced it. I loved it. But it was also challenging. I was homesick. My first couple of Christmases away from home were really tough. Just me and my mate in his house the one year. No Christmas tree, no presents. We didn't have Sky, no PS4s. It was literally like, it was the end. And it was hard. It was lots of ups and downs, lots of learning curves, and lots of things I did wrong,
And presumably with your stature, people knew you. People, your stature on and off the field, and also, presumably the size of an 18-year-old, international rugby player. You can't really go under the radar a lot. I suppose if you sneeze at one end of the town, they hear it at the other. Is that right?
Well, I've always been like a bubbly type of character. I never went going out looking for scraps and all that. Obviously, there were times that happened, and that's life. But especially when drinks involved, but it was just more. I was a young man with my South African accent in Newport, tiny little town in Wales, and things. I mean, it was mental. It was literally, and the people I met was just. It was great. It was crazy, and my rugby started to go, and then I got it back. And when I look back, Simon, I can see my cycles now. That destructive behavior when I didn't have a focus and a drive, where the wheels would come off, and then when I would re-get it, and then things would go on. You know, even from a young age, looking back, I could see them. Cycle was there. You know, that destructive person was inside.
It's funny because I
Already.
know Newport. I know Newport well. A lot of my relatives are from Newport. I was sort of brought up there a bit. They still got businesses in the town as well. We were up at Tredegar or Fields Park Avenue. I don't even know if they were but up the top there. And I schooled for a bit in Killeen, which was, you know, when I was small. So yeah, I know it, and I know that, you know, you could probably have a name there, couldn't you? Especially if it's that rugby chap, or however, you know.
Yeah, you know, at that age, I wasn't really anything. Newport was a good side then. So there were a lot of big cheeses in that side. Tony Brown had brought in a lot of big players. So I was just a kid in the academy. You know, they knew I was a nightmare. They knew I had a lifestyle issue. But they knew that I could play rugby, you know. So at that point, it was, you know, he's got a lot to learn. He's got a shit attitude because, you know, I was a non-conformist. I didn't believe in, you know, I would take, if there was a long path, Simon, I would take it because I didn't want to listen to anyone, have anyone's help. I wanted to do things my own way. And if anything was otherwise, you know, I would kick off. I didn't get on great with my first coaches, my team managers, the people, hierarchy within the club, police, stuff like this. I just didn't conform with. Call it stubbornness, call it, I don't know what you want to call it, but it was just something from a young age I had kind of learned. The same within high school. You know, we used to have a real strict school where, like, my high school and the prefects would take punishment into their own hands. And in the evenings, when the masters had locked up, they'd come around and, you know, if they wanted to give you a hide-in or talking after lights out or whatever, they would give you a hide-in. And I'm talking about with hockey sticks, cricket bats, you know, coat hangers. And we had a close group of friends that we were naughty, so, but we took the punishment and we wouldn't grass on the prefects. We took it like, you know, like men. And from a young age, I suppose that kind of taught me the wrong way to go about things, was that they would hit me and I wouldn't show weakness. I didn't want to show them that they, although when they left, I'd probably cry for hours. You know, that's how we became. We became quite hard-nosed, stubborn, and rebellious, I suppose.
I mean, you've chucked in a few terms there that I think could be related not just to yourself, but to, I speak from a male point of view for obvious reasons. Yeah. But, you know, when you talk about stubbornness, when you talk about not showing a weakness, when you talk about dealing with stuff behind closed doors on our own, it's not just you, is it? That's men in general. Was there anything about the rugby environment that gave you help, that shaped you, that softened the edges a bit, being around lots of other strong stereotypes?
I think like rugby's a bubble, Simon, where I think you assume that everyone's got your back, everyone's your best mates, because when you're there, it's like a dream. It's everything you've ever dreamt of doing. It's the game you love. You're basically, it's not a job, it's your passion, you know, and you're surrounded by people that you know, you don't get on with absolutely everyone, but you get on with the majority of them. And, you know, it's fun. You're going away. You are being in competitive environments. It's like things, it's amazing things. And you're meeting people. You're going out in the town. You're getting drunk with them. And you're seeing stupid things and you're laughing your head off. And you're meeting girls and people are telling you stories. Like, it's amazing, right? But also at the same time, it's a competitive situation. So you don't want to open up too much because you want to, you know, you don't want to get shown up or get embarrassed or, you know, but at that point, it is what it is. You don't even think twice about it because it's just second nature. It's, you know, it's a manly environment where weakness is frowned upon because you're a winner, you know?
And yet everyone's got your back, isn't it? It's a, I mean, the link I took over there from rugby to corporate is that once you spent 5, 6, 7 years building that image, because, you know, you didn't mess around, did you? You were in the forwards and you were playing for your country in a World Cup, so you must have been pretty handy, Rhys.
This was at 21's World Cup and then 19's World Cup.
But I mean, you must have had a bit of something about you. Now, once you've built up that game phase, that becomes part of your image, in the same way that in the corporate environment, once you've worked in a big corporate company for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and you've moved from one to another, and you don't, people find it very hard to put their hand up and say, look, I'm struggling a bit, I need a bit of help, because they fear that perhaps they're going to get judged on that, and they won't keep that face that they've built up for the last few years. Is it hard to put your hand up within that environment, or was the rugby environment easier because 9 times out of 10 the others would have been feeling much the same?
Well, when I was coming through the game early in 2000s in the academies and stuff, even when you were injured, and still it's the same now. You want to play those games, Simon. If you get injured, you don't want to be injured, so you play with knocked. It's the norm, right? It's not. I think. I mean, it's impossible. There's not many professionals now that aren't playing with some sort of niggle, right? The game's so physical, but you want to play the game as well. So obviously, concussion aside, there's so much you actually have to put up with rugby. You have to go from week to week with a little tweak here, tweak there. That's just the game. But at the same time, it is hard to open up, especially to your teammates, because fear of them telling the other boys all laughing at you, like that's, I wouldn't have wanted that personally. I can only speak from personal experience, but that being embarrassed in front of the group, like that was, that's something you could try and avoid at all costs. Certainly for me, that was how I felt. So there was a lot I get. I certainly wouldn't be talking to any of my rugby mates about anything outside of the game, other than feelings wise, emotion wise. If someone had died or something like that, yes, I would say. But if someone cried, then yeah, I was always short. I wouldn't laugh at someone if they cried. I would if it was over something, which I deemed to be pathetic at that point. But things have changed a lot since then.
We've got a mutual friend, haven't we, Matt Jess? We've got a mutual friend, Matt Jess, who is a former Exeter Chiefs rugby player, and what he said was, there is the intriguing thing that I was thinking is at what point does the banter level, because obviously you've got a banter, haven't you, within a rugby team, at what point does that come into disrepute? Can you take it too far? Are you very aware of all the people around you that they perhaps go, hang on a minute, that this is serious, there's a draw the line on banter here?
I don't know. It's hard in the environment, Simon, because you just don't know. I think banter, in a way, is healthy. It depends what is crossing the line. Some people, you can say absolutely anything to them, and they just laugh it off, and genuinely it doesn't affect them at all. But then some people, you can say something small, and you can see it affects them. It's a tough one to be in the environment. I think while you're in the environment, it's easy to take. I think what the best thing of that, especially sporting environments, is that they have an external link to vent to, because I think it's very hard to show your true self, although you want to be able to show your true self. Within the environment, it's hard to express, which is why having maybe a sports psychologist in-house within the clubs, or an external charity or company that comes in and they have a number or access to a 24/7 telephone line, or they can get psychologists, or even whatever other services that could be offered. I think that's the important part. The environment, while you're in there, the majority of the time, 99.9% of the time, they're great until you're injured, and then obviously that's a different kettle of fish altogether. But I think it's just having the tools there that the boys know that in the event of there's you can go and vent, but that it's not. I think the problem with having psychologists in the club, and why players still feel that they can't open up to them, is that they still think that maybe there's going to be a relaying of information between them and the coaches, and that'll be frowned upon. This is why I think external companies or charities are better, because then they think, I'll speak to them, because they're not going to find out about what's actually going on in my head. They won't know about this X, Y, or Z. because it may be to do with their social life. Like somebody's social life can be out of control. They can be gambling excessively. They can be in debt to people that are really they don't want to be in debt to. So they want to maybe need to speak, they're worried about speaking to the club in fear of losing their job.
It's the main reason why people don't put their hand up, is that fear of that someone is going to report back. I mean, how open can you be about something you're doing in your private life that you know will directly affect your job? And you're telling your own boss the bits that they could hold against you in the future. And that there is the very reason, the essence behind Wellity, which is third-party verification, validation, someone else to go to. Because we all know, I don't know what I do, I am more likely to open up probably after 2 or 3 pints to a bloke I've just met in a pub that I don't know, that I'm pretty sure I'm not going to see again. And you, you as well? Yeah, another thing. And then it lets it out without that you second guessing what immediately then the shutters come down. Now, Rhys, how low did it get for you? Because we're going to talk about when you left, when you were injured, obviously, but also when rugby players leave the sport that's given them that acclaim. Yeah. But how low did it get to you when you thought, oh, do you know what? Either you made the decision to do something or someone made it for you? I'm talking about your mental health and everything.
I mean, like, obviously when I lost my career, things were really bad. You know? I think one thing about what the game, you know, taught me or drilled into me as well was, you know, that to get to the top end of any sport, I think, you've got a particular type of drive, you've got to focus. And for me, given the fact that I lost my career, I had a focus, which was at that point, which was to stay alive, because my heart attacks had put me in really unfortunate health situation where, you know, I was dying. You know, I was lucky to be alive after my quadruple bypass.
But what happened there then that led up to that point?
Yeah, so I mean, it was, you know, the unfortunate part of it, Simon, is that at 29, when I had my heart attack, I was, you know, I'd fallen out of favour in the Welsh squad. Unfortunately, through also the same issue that from my younger career was the lifestyle and dealing with that, you know, getting that balance right and maybe not giving sacrificing and dedicating enough of my, you know, of my time to the sport. And that, you know, that was something that I was gutted when I got released from the squad. But then I, you know, a couple of years of bad injuries, then straight afterwards, up to about 2011, and then I hit a good patch of form. I was just in my last contract with the Scarlets, my last year of the contract, and I was probably playing the best rugby in my career. And then, unfortunately, a heart attack. So yeah, it was a tough time. You know, I'd just agreed a contract to move to France on double the contract I was on with the Scarlets. You know, and even though I had a focus to stay alive post-op, and because I had a young family, I had a lot to lose. I was very grateful to be alive, but I was also devastated with the situation. And as I got my health back, that physical battle became a mental battle. And all those thoughts about, you know, what could I have done better? You know, if I had just not gone out as much, you know, would have got to this. But even though the doctors had said, you know, it was not hereditary. There's no underlying heart disease. It wasn't because of anything. It was just an unfortunate circumstance, you know. So it was hard. It was I mean, I went into dark place. I had anxiety, panic attacks. I slipped into depression for sure. And then I had another huge operation in 2014, which yet again, I was very lucky to survive. I was asleep for 2 weeks post-op, in induced coma. When I eventually did wake up, it took me a good year to get my health back up, in which time I suffered terribly with panic attacks and anxiety from the time I was asleep, from the dreams and nightmares stuff that I had, to the noise of the A&E. All that stuff was just going in my head, like post-traumatic stress disorder almost, you know, from all that traumatic time, months and months I spent in hospital. And it was a tough time, Tom. I'm not going to lie to you, you know. And then when I started to get my health back, then by 2015, halfway through 2015, 2016, you know, I had a machine that ran my heart, external batteries that I carry around in a bag with me, and I just couldn't. My reality was too much to bear. You know, the loss of my career, the loss of my identity. I almost regretted that not achieving what I could have achieved, underachieving, stuff I could have done better. I had a lot of guilt and shame and remorse, you know, not just within rugby, outside of rugby. But, you know, I had my life. So in one part, I was happy, but in the other part, you know, most of the day when I was sat there, I was just, my head was just completely just running away, just chaos, thinking about my career, how I'd lost it, what could I have done better, and just that would eat me away. And then, you know, I'd look to the future and I couldn't see in the future what would happen, because I have a machine that runs my heart. The doctor said, "How long are you going to live?" And they were like, "How long is a piece of string?" So, you know, that's what kind of answers to give me is that, you know. So I don't have how long this machine's going to last. Then I got put on the transplant list, and then they gave me a book to read about how many ways I could die of a transplant. So then I just think, oh, I'm going to die anyway. So what's the point of, you know, just chugging along like this? You know, I can't swim. I can't pick my kids up. I can't go for a run. All these things I took for granted, taken from me. And I used to love swimming. I was a bloody water baby coming from back from SA, you know. And these were all things that just literally ate away at me. And I didn't speak to anyone. Now, I think I saw a psychologist a handful of times just to deal with my anxiety, just so I could learn breathing techniques and other techniques so that when it got to a panic attack level, I could get out of it. But that was enough for me to take over. And my wife used to beg me, my now ex-wife, to please go and see someone. And I'd be like, no, I'm fine. I'd just say I'm fine. And my sponsor now tells me what fine. He says fine is fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional.
Emotional, yeah.
And it's the truest thing ever, because that's all I used to say. And I just didn't deal with it, son. And all of that led to was that I couldn't live with my reality. So in order for me to check out of my reality, I drank. And I had a fluid restriction, 2.5 liters a day of fluid. And I would drink, initially it was, you know, a few beers. I worked out a few beers was only going to be, you know, because that was water or anything for the whole day, 24-hour period. And in the end, you know, I was drinking 2.5 liters of spirits. And just because, and I didn't class myself as an alcoholic because I didn't drink Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but I'd go out Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but I wouldn't leave anything in the tank. But then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like the most severe anxiety, panic attacks, literally wouldn't like move 50 steps in those days, just literally in fear. And then the minute Thursday came, I'd be like, oh, here we go. I'm feeling good again. And just then my thoughts would be running through my head. And I just couldn't see a way out, Simon. I just could not see a way. I couldn't bear my life, couldn't bear my reality of my life. Although I had everything around me that I have now, my family, the care, you know, the love that people were showing me, my friends asking me how I was, please, can you stop drinking? My wife begging me daily, please, can you stop doing it? Like, because it's just going to end badly. You know, I'm just afraid that someone's going to come knocking the door at 2 and 3 in the morning, and it's going to be you with the police because you haven't plugged yourself in, or because my batteries last 8 hours a set, and if you don't change them, Simon, the machine will stop pumping, and there's a possibility I'll die. But mate, in the end, I didn't care, and I used to go out, get absolutely blotto, and I couldn't see a way out. And you know, thank God, on the 1st of September, I crashed my car, and that was the turning point. 1st September 2019, I stopped drinking, and I cross-addicted, started to use CBD and THC drops. I played FIFA Ultimate Team for like 8-10 hours a day. I was just a void. I was what they call a dry drunk. I cross-addicted to anything that I could take my mind off. I was depressed. I was in massive denial that I had an issue, even though my wife was telling me on a daily, minute basis. And then, you know, my friends had did an intervention, and my best friends from school, 3 of them chipped in with my brother and my father. And they made me go to rehab in Cape Town. And that was the point in my life where it changed. I changed fundamentally as a human being. I had a huge paradigm shift. And it was the best, most stroke painful awakening of my life. 28 days. It was the most phenomenal experience I ever had.
Well, we all owe a lot to those mates, don't we? The ones that that stepped in.
Incredible. And I mean,
had you not had the car crash, Rhys, where do you think it might have taken you?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much longer I had in that, where I was in that rut of, I didn't care anymore for a start. I would end up in the gutter. I'd end up in hospital. I'd end up with the police bringing me home. In the end, the police just brought me home. They knew where I lived. And they just dropped me home. It was sad, mate. It was a sad state of affairs. I was a mess. And not only that, the worst thing about alcoholism and addiction is that you hurt the people closest to you. They're the ones that love you the most, but you don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear about what you could do better, what you can do better. Because for you, I just want to get up. For me, I just wanted to get away from it, from the noise, from that washing machine head that I had, you know, that chaos.
It's like a bully in a way, isn't it? Because it lures you in saying, have a drink, I'll go away, have a drink, I'll be quiet, quieten me down, have a drink. And then it gets you to that point where you do, and and then you feel sort of on a level again, but then you do it more, false sense of security. And then, like you say, when that Monday comes, it goes, ha, you believe me, right? Yeah. And it comes back and hits you with a hangover, and in like you said, anxiety attacks and panic attacks. And
yeah, I promise you, the amount of time, Simon, that I said I'll never ever touch a drink ever again, ever on my life, and because my wife has threatened me with about 1 million times with divorce. Everyone was like, my best friends, my mum, my dad, they would bring me crying, Zoom me crying, and I'd be like, please, Rhys, just stop. And then I'd say, right, enough's enough, I've got to stop. You know, something ridiculous had happened, and I'd stop. I'd stop for a month. I'd stop for sometimes longer, you know, and then that would give me more justification to say, and you know, to my wife, I don't have a problem. Look at this. I've done a month. Look at me. Like, how can you call me an alcoholic? Alcoholics can't do it. They're dependent on alcohol. And then the minute I had a drink, I couldn't stop. Like, I'd try and have like one glass of red over it with some food, right? Next thing you know, it's Monday morning, and I've been out for 3 nights. My wife ain't speaking to me. My kids, like, I've said stuff to them, and it was just crazy, mate. It was just shit. What an awful. I didn't understand the disease of addiction and alcoholism, and I have a lot of sympathy, a lot of compassion and empathy towards anyone, just in general, mate. Because until you can walk a mile in someone's shoes, who are you to judge them? And I didn't understand that until I went to rehab. You know, being in a rehab center with people with all sorts of addictions, sex, drugs, heroin, crystal meth, crack, you name it. And they were my roommates, sharing rooms and sharing the experiences, them talking about their addiction history and opening up about their pasts to you after 3 weeks of being with each other. And I thought, whatever I thought of those human beings at that point, when they then gave me their life story of why they used the first time they used the traumas that make game changer.
What was the common ground? Whether it be any other sort of substance, whatever the chosen weapon of choice is, what was the common ground that led to it, do you think?
The common ground, I would say, with the majority, and I swear to God, Simon, in this bizarre one, and I can go to an AA room, a CA, NA room in Bristol, Christchurch, New Zealand, anywhere, and it's like home away from home. We're all exactly the same human beings, woman, man, race, creed, it doesn't matter. We're exactly the same human beings. Fundamentally, I think it can be in hereditary, it can be in your blood, which doesn't mean necessarily you're going to be an alcoholic, by the way. But trauma, circumstance, it can be any number of things. But I think one thing we have in common is we've all had a great deal of suffering. We've rationalized, minimalized, and justified our whole lives. We were all incredibly selfish and self-centered human beings. And we have a lot of shame, remorse, and guilt, which we've addressed through the 12 steps of recovery, or whichever way that you found your peace. And there's something about, the people that have been there, that journey that they've been on, and it's incredible. And it definitely taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about how transferable it is to life, about we all in some shape or form are addicted to something, whether it be food, relationships, work, you name it.
There's going to be a lot of people at the moment who are very down and who perhaps have sunk into addiction, wittingly or unwittingly, or they're in relationships and they're taking advice. Now, we deal with a lot of people who perhaps their other halves are extremely depressed, are full of anxiety, and they find that their advice isn't cutting through, and often asking, look, from the other side of the fence, what is the advice that would help? And what are the, maybe in your case, the no-goes? Was shouting at you to stop perhaps the wrong thing to do? What worked and what didn't?
I think the unfortunate circumstance is, Simon, is that you can be told till you're blue in the face that you have a problem, that there is issues, that you're doing this wrong and that wrong, and you're having your wife write you letters, your children write you letters, your parents write you letters, your most loved core of human beings that are keeping you, the reason that you still are here. Yet your denial is making you believe that it's justified. You feed off your self-pity. You're like your victim mindset with self-pity, with your way you see things, your perception at that point, that negativity that comes up in you becomes your reality. So that negative energy then you give off is literally attracting negative energy outside. So all you will see, all you will attract is negativity. And that self-pity and victim mindset just drives you further and further down. And then, unfortunately, a lot of the time you have to hit your rock bottom at some point, or have to see something has to rock you to wake you up from this like smog of your mind, because all it is your thinking. The byproduct of thinking is your emotions, because behind your thinking is you. Your thinking is not you. I think there's people that I've just recently understood this, and it's something that I'm delving very deeply into. I've become quite spiritual about it, and is that we're not our thinking minds. Our thinking minds create emotion and duality, but behind that is us, is our being. And I think the only thing that we can do, Tom, is by me being vulnerable and telling about my circumstance and what happened to me, and through other people doing the same, and offering people a way out so that they know they're going to go through it. I think a lot of people, 90% of people, are going to have to go through the grind. They're going to have to understand it. There's only so much of this negativity you want to take, because all you're doing is torturing yourself. There is a way out. And if you offer them the tool, there it is. Hear me speak, or hear someone else speak. Right. I know there's someone. I relate with absolutely everything that fella just said, but at least I know it's there. So I'm going to carry on like this for a bit longer, to my own detriment. I'm going to give myself a load more pain and suffering, because that's just what'll happen. And then they'll just go one day, right, what's that Welity program? What was it called? Oh, yeah. I'm going to go give him...
I'm like smiling from ear to ear, because this is exactly the reason.
I'm going to give him a ring.
Some people just need to be nudged, cajoled, educated into there is a better way. I relate to everything that you've said in terms of mindset, and the fact that you can overrule at some point, but only when you're ready. So, I had the 25 minutes that changed my life when my anxiety was so loud. My inner critic was deafening. It was bold and aggressive. And I went out for a run one day, and my mind was telling me, you can't run 5K. You certainly can't run 10K. And I thought, I'm going to run until my legs don't move, to prove my mind is wrong. And once I know my mind is wrong, then I go back and search, what else has it told me I can't do that I maybe could. I did 30K that day. I couldn't walk afterwards, but I met this lovely lady who took a photo, and then we were talking about anxiety, and she opened up, and I thought, that's a game changer. You can prove you're most wrong. And it's this, the bit for me was the scariness, because you don't know where the bottom is. And what you're doing, Rhys, what you are doing now on a big level, which is so inspirational, is that you're just educating people, going, don't panic, just relax. You will hit the bottom at some point, but don't worry. Look, I did, we all did, people at work, but this is what I've just, and you're educating, which means it's taking the scariness, especially if someone's experiencing it for the first time, out of it. I commend you, mate. Honestly, I commend you.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. It really is. I think, you know, like when you do eventually have enough of torturing yourself, because that's all you're doing in your mind, you're torturing yourself. And that victim mentality, the minute you can change that from like, oh my God, why is this happening to me again? It's always happening to me, you know, and stop taking the things that are bad that are happening in your life, that you're attracting, by the way, through your negativity, which is no fault of your own, Simon. No. Basically, almost everything we've been taught from kids, fundamentally in some shape or form, are wrong. You know, we've been conditioned, whether it be through the things that your parents got taught by their parents, which were all probably wrong, but they did the best job they did because that's all they knew what to do. So, you know, you can't blame them. So whether it's through your education system, through circumstance, through loss, through grief, through suffering, you know, all these, there's so many factors. We didn't wish for any of it, okay? But we've been conditioned to believe in a way that is not, it's not true. You know, we have to strip ourselves back down to the way we came into this world from our mothers, where we didn't have a name, we didn't have nothing, we had no reservations, judgments, resentments. You know, all we were was just a ball of energy. And we've then had stuff put on us, a name, all these other conditioning circumstances that have then made us believe a certain set of ways and rules, and it's craziness, it's mental. And so you know, look at them and make what are they doing for you, the bad times, and what are they doing, why me, what are they doing for me, like how can I make this, what good can I see what come from this? And at the time it's hard, but there's good in everything bad. You just need to look harder.
So I said on an interview yesterday that I want to try and find the blueprint. The reason is for Wellity, for your mission, for my mission, the combined, is to try and find the blueprint between when someone's going down and they're fearing the bottom, that fear, to hitting the bottom and coming up. Now that is the blueprint we want to sort of put on posters everywhere and let everyone know this is what's going to happen. In my case, it felt like I was lying on the floor with a foot on my chest trying to get up. In other people's cases, it's been like they think they're at the bottom of a well. They can see and sort of hear the muffled voices up there, but the walls are slippery and they can't get up. Where was your just coming down that? What did that feeling feel like to you? But also after the bottom, which we've spoken about, what is that feeling of a bit of elation, really, isn't it? When you think you might be on the way up.
I mean, when I was at the bottom, it was just dreadful, mate. It was a repetitive cycle of, it was hell. Like, it felt like, although I had, you know, my family, my kids, I had a nice house, I had, you know, money in the bank, food in the fridge, best friends imaginable, like anything you could have wished for. But I felt alone. I felt completely alone. I felt lonely. I felt sad. I felt like I had nothing to live for. And, you know, the sad reality is, like, it was just, the way I saw the world then was just so negative. And then obviously when I hit my rock bottom and then did my rehab and came out of there, was just like, it even looked like I had different eyes. I saw that everything looked different. I smelled different. My taste buds changed. It was just an insane experience. I can't put it into words. It was like, the rock bottom was like an incomprehensible demoralization. That was a word in the AA Big Book it uses.
Oh, hang on. What was that? Incomprehensible.
Demoralization. I think that's from the big AA Big Book, and that is a word that I highlighted and put in a lot of the books. That's how I felt. But the mad thing is, Simon, however low that rock bottom was, there's another 10 floors under that, mate. You know, you could be homeless, you could be, you know, you could be dead, mate. You know what I mean? The amazing thing is, I know that my rock bottom is where it was, and I don't ever want to see that ever again. But I do know there's another 10 floors under that rock bottom, and I have to do a daily reprieve and work my processes so that I never get back to that place. You know, gratitude, an attitude of gratitude, as it was just a natural coinciding with this how I felt. This whole new, it was just a complete change around. I can't tell people the difference of happiness, but I've lost it since being sober. Okay, my wife of 16 years left me sober because once I sobered up, all that like stress of what I put her through for those years when I had my machine, my operations, all those amazing things she did to be with me up to that point, it all like came crashing down, you know, like stress that I had put her through. And, you know, she just couldn't see how it was humanly possible that a human being could love someone and put her through that amount of stress. It was hard to take, Simon. But, you know, I went on, I moved on. And it was the biggest thing of love she ever did for me, Paula, was by leaving me, because it made me have to recover and dig deeper again and reflect even deeper to the person that I was. It was a painful but incredibly huge amount of growth came from that. You know, I think change, it all comes down to fear, son. We're afraid of many aspects, but fear prevents us from doing it. You know, I had fear of confrontation, of rejection, of failure. All these fears dressed up in manifested in many different ways, you know. But when I then started to look at, you know, what is this doing, for me? You know, she's left me. I had to look deeper into the human being that I am. Who is Rhys? You know, strip back all those layers, get rid of all the masks, find out who I am as a human being fundamentally. What do I like? What's my passions? What's my purpose moving forward? Because without a purpose, I'm lost. I'm nothing. That seems to be where everything changed, Simon, for me. Was in rehab, they said, you need a purpose. And I thought at that time, it's rugby. It's rugby. That's all I know. You know, it's rugby. But that was just a security. You know, it's like a little blankie. I needed as my security blanket because I was scared. I was petrified. I was vulnerable, you know. And it was all change. Fear of change is a frightening thing. But when you do it, it opened so many doors. And it was the best thing. It was a life-changing event. And I'm grateful for so many human beings that helped me get to that point, you know, good and bad. And, you know, what an experience. What a ride. Life is incredible, Simon. I swear to God, you know, and I don't, you know, all the good and the bad have taken me to this point. And to meet the amount of beautiful human beings that I've met would not have happened unless I had gone through all that suffering. Suffering has been my greatest teacher. It is a fact.
There's a couple of things, and you know, the stuff that you could put on t-shirts, right? The attitude of gratitude. That's the title for this, by the way. Now, well done. Save me a job. Are you in a rush now? Because when I was feeling better, I almost thought, I've got to make up for time now. I've been given a superpower in a way. I relate it to having a superpower. The same, you could walk into any room and I bet you, Rhys, you could tell if someone's maybe suffering, or maybe if someone's got something going on behind the eyes that's affecting them. And then you would know how to diligently deal with that scenario as well. Either, you know, not necessarily call them out on it, but maybe get to know them and see if you can help. Has it given you that sort of power of unlocking someone's thought?
Yeah. I don't know what, I mean, I do find learning about, us as human beings, the spiritual aspect of us, our energies, the world, our connection with everyone and everything in it. I find it's fascinating, actually. And I'm early on my journey into this. I'm 18 months sober, discovering many things. But what I think you're suggesting is, I suppose, I can feel, I suppose it's energy. You can tell when someone's energy's, down, when they're down in the dumps. Yeah, you can see it. Their very demeanors, their body language. But I just gotta try and be as kind and open-minded, non-judgmental as we can.
Yeah.
Because without, I think, during these incredibly challenging times, Simon, I think mental health in the next 5 to 10 years, I think, is going to be a huge issue. And I just hope that by doing what I'm doing now, it gives people the strength to be able to, the courage to speak out and reach out to the multiple amounts of foundations, charities, companies that are out there that are willing to help. I just also hope that the companies that are in charge now, the bigger ones that are dealing with this onslaught of mental health, that they share, that it's a joined up approach, that they don't try and take all of it for selfish gains, when it should be a human first approach, where we're doing this because we want to help as many people as possible. It's not about the money. I think there has to be that type of approach to mental health.
We're all in it together, aren't we?
Yeah, I think it has to be. But I mean, whether that's the case, who knows?
I love your bit about purpose, and your purpose is helping you live from that lower vibration, as you said, when you're attracting all that negative energy to you're going up. And I bet by the day you're going up, and as you go up, you do more opportunity then comes in, that leads to a bigger confidence. And I wish you just every success, and I'm going to keep in touch with you, whether you like it or not, if I'm honest, Rhys. Now, you talk about purpose. I know I've kept you a while now, so we'll start to draw it to a close. I've got 2 questions for you. He's bearing in mind everything, all the highs and lows that you've shared with us today. And, I commend you for doing it, because it's inspirational. Now, from now on, what is your purpose then that you refer to?
I believe that my purpose is to I feel that it's to help others. I don't know in what capacity. At this current time, I think by telling my story, I feel that may give people the courage to speak up. I also am trying in many other ways. It seems that mental health and well-being is where I'm finding myself going, Simon. I don't know why. I didn't intend to do this. This wasn't where I aimed to be, or came out of a rehab and thought, this is where I'm going. It's just kind of where I've ended up. And I've just allowed life to guide me down an avenue, by just, not being driven by self, being driven by, not by ego or pride. It's, just to give back. And obviously I need to make a living, to look after my own family, which also brings a set of challenges, because there's only so much I can do voluntarily. But I'm trying to find ways and means to make a living as well as help others. So, whether it's through speaking or through helping multiple organizations, help mental health organizations, or whether it's through a completely separate line of work, I'm not sure. I know one thing, that I will always be able to help others, whether it be addicts, mental health, anything, because I've got to give back. If I'm not helping others, that service. If I don't do that, I'm not staying to what my morals now are, not what they used to be, but they are now. And I'm not perfect, Simon. I'm not perfect.
Who is?
And I try to stay as honest, transparent, and all those other things that I mentioned on a daily basis, which is a challenge. It is a challenge, but that's what I want to do, and that's where I'm headed.
Well, look, Rhys, we're gonna share this story for free for everyone, because it's your purpose at core is to help people. We'll also put you onto the Wellity Global Motivational Speakers, so that if anyone does want to bring you in to do any sort of work with them, advice, or hear your motivational story, then they can book you, because obviously you do need to create a living at some point so that you can keep the wheels going. Where can people find you, Rhys?
I am on LinkedIn. I am on Instagram and Clubhouse.
And your tags?
Rhys Thomas 33 on Instagram. On LinkedIn, I think it's just Rhys Thomas 3, or just Rhys Thomas. And Clubhouse is Rhys Thomas 3. All
right, and then the last final question. I promise I'll let you go then. After everything that you've endured, seen, and have been around in those years of your life, and the opening of your vision now into what your future may hold, which is quite exciting that you don't know what it is, but at least you know it's going to be positive. What, after all that, what is your definition of well-being?
I think it's being happy, Simon, but being happy has a duality, because if you're happy, there has to be a sad. You know, at some point, you can't stay happy forever. It's not a normal feeling. But I think it's what I've discovered. Well-being was well-being, wasn't it? You said,
yeah.
It's everything. I think what I've only found out in recent months, you know, it's the diet. You know, I've tried to diet my whole life, and then all of a sudden, when I sorted my head out, I wanted to eat well, and now I eat well, and now I've lost 3 stone without even trying. It's not even a diet. It's just because I want to eat good food. But by eating good food, I feel better. I wake up earlier. I have more energy. It's crazy, right? It's everything. I think well-being is many folds, but it starts up here. And if this isn't right, I think the rest will struggle to ever maintain any level of that middle plane, you know, that yin and yang. If we can, it's everything, and the mindset. But if you can sort your way of thinking out, and I would encourage people to read The Power of Now, because I find it's a very, for me, it was a moving book that showed just a window into how I felt at the time, but I've struggled to put it into words.
The Power of Now.
Yeah. And it certainly helped me a hell of a lot, and it's helped my well-being and given me a better understanding of me as a person. But it's everything, you know, drink lots of water, eat well, regular exercise. If you can, like I'm limited at what I can do, obviously, with my heart, right? Mm-hmm. I've still got to have a heart transplant, but yeah, it's
well, it seems to me that you've got to a stage where you're allowing yourself to make the conscious effort for more self-improvement. And
oh yeah, constantly, and speaking, you know, and reaching out to others. Sometimes you don't always feel like speaking to others, but make the effort. You know, people want those phone calls. No, don't isolate. Reach out, even in lockdown. I mean, it's got to be done.
Yeah, well, we're glad you have reached out. I know we speak to a lot of people about what is the main outreach when you go out to someone, and sometimes it's not, are you okay? Because that's a definitive yes or no. Or it's, are you well? Which means I'm not well, so I don't want to tell you about how I'm doing. And actually we find that sometimes it might be quite nice just to start talking to someone and, you know, try and get them back on that level. Look, Rhys, it's been amazing to talk to you today. We're going to do what we can just to make sure your message goes far and wide. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap today up?
Nope. I think we covered most things there, Simon, and yeah, thanks for giving me the platform again, obviously, and I'm grateful for that. And I hope you have a good day, buddy.
Pleasure. Thanks a lot. We'll keep in touch. Thanks ever so much, Rhys.